give you a little introduction for those of you that haven't had the pleasure of knowing who Dr. Ivan Misner is. He is the founder of BNI. That stands for Business Network International. It's a worldwide networking organization that was started by Dr. Misner in 1985. He now has, or BNI has, 8,000 chapters worldwide, or maybe more than that. And in 2015, BNI generated more than 11 billion with a B dollars in closed business worldwide for its members. So that's very exciting. Dr. Misner, I wanted to talk to him today because he has written over 21 books. He's a best-selling New York Times author. He's a columnist for entrepreneur.com, and he's been featured in the Wall Street Journal, the New York Times, and numerous TV and radio shows. Welcome, Dr. Misner.
Hey, it's a pleasure to be on. Thank you very much.
Well, it's great to have you here. The reason I wanted to talk to you today is my audience is largely small business owners, and they're looking to figure out how to best build their small business and brand their business. And since I'm such a big advocate for BNI, I've been in for 3 years. I am a director consultant, so that means that I support chapters in growing their business. And I attribute more than half of the revenue in my business to the connections that I've made through BNI. So I wanted to bring you to my audience and have you share how you got started, because you are now a worldwide entity with BNI, but you started just like everybody else with one thing, one business, some idea came to you. And I believe the story goes that you'd had a large account and you bought a house, and unfortunately that account went away. So if we could take you all the way back to then, can you start there and tell us a little bit about how you started your business back then?
Yeah, listen, happy to do that. And Tammy, thank you so much for your involvement in BNI. We appreciate you and appreciate your involvement. I think BNI is a great example of necessity being the mother of invention. When I started BNI, I was a management consultant, and I help people build their business by mostly through strategic planning and hiring, training, evaluating employees. And I lost this client that I thought was going to renew. I didn't know their finances; they were in trouble, and so they couldn't renew me. And I was stuck, and I didn't know how to network. I mean, they didn't teach us this in colleges and universities. They still don't today. And so I went to a lot of networking groups at that time. And I went to some that were incredibly mercenary. And I'd walk away and I always felt like I was slimed. I'd go get a shower because they were doing nothing but selling to me. And then I went to these other groups that were really social. And it was about, hors d'oeuvres and drinks.
Cocktails.
And it was about cocktails, and it was very social, and there was no business. And so what I felt was needed was something that merged the two, that had a business focus and accountability, but also had an emphasis on relationships, so that it wasn't just transactional. And by merging the two together with some system and structure, that it would work. And that's sort of what led to BNI.
That's awesome. I love that. So today, branding is kind of the big buzzword. Companies have been branding for years, 20, 30, whatever. As long as people have been in business, they've been branding. But it's now the catchphrase. And if you're an individual business or you're an individual person, branding is what it's all about. And social media, I feel like, has really changed that. So can you talk about what branding means to you, and what would be the best advice you have for somebody just starting out?
So for me, look, you can get on the internet and do a search on what does branding mean, what's the definition of branding, or your brand, and you'll hear a lot of somewhat complex things. For me, it's pretty simple. Your brand is what other people say about you. That's really it. It's what people say about you. And so building that brand is where it gets complex. Now, common thought is that it is your logo, particularly for small businesses. It's your logo, it's your visual look, it's your tagline. While it absolutely includes those things, I believe it's way, way more than just that. And it gets complicated with some of these additional things. I think it starts with, after those things, it then starts with a clear vision statement as to what your business, what the purpose of your business is, a mission statement, particularly solid core values. Yes, your core values as a company becomes your brand. And if you don't have a solid foundation of core values, you're not going to build a healthy brand. I believe that culture eats strategy for breakfast, and your culture is the foundation of your brand, and you build your culture through your core values, mission, and vision statement.
Okay. So when you started out, did you have that vision in mind already, or did that sort of adjust over time?
It definitely evolved over time. We didn't have the mission statement we have today, but we did have one really important core value. There were several core values, but one that was absolutely key, and that is our principal core value of giver's gain. This idea that if you want to get business, you got to give business to other people. And that became the foundation of the building blocks of our other core values, our mission statement, our vision statement, and particularly, it was particularly important in building those other foundational items.
I have to say that was the thing that was most attractive to me about BNI was that giver's gain philosophy. I've always had that, and I was corporate before I started my photography business, and 26 years of corporate values kind of ingrains in me, but it was always about, for me, seeking out a mentor to bring me up who'd already kind of walked in my shoes to avoid the pitfalls, and then bringing those up with me, teaching, those behind me to come up as well. And that's all about giving. It was the mentor above me giving to me giving to the next guy, and so on. So BNI to me is no different. Is we don't give to get, we give because we want to. And at some point it will come back to us if we're doing, if we're being open with those around us.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. I think you nailed it. Let me add one other thing, though, that I didn't mention. I think it's really important in terms of you're a new business, let's say, or reasonably new. You're a year, 2, 3 years old, and you don't have all those things in place. And I see people, they struggle with, well, I don't even know where to start. I'll tell you what to start with. What comes before the completion of your list of core values, what comes before that are traditions. So the first thing I would tell small business owners to think about is, what are the traditions of your business? What are things that you have done consistently over a year or 2 years where it becomes a tradition of the organization, a tradition of the business? Those traditions lead to the core values of the company. And the core values lead to the building of a brand. And so people don't usually talk about the traditions piece, and they try to jump right to core values. And I think the traditions help you determine
I love that.
what your core values are.
Yeah, it's not something you necessarily think about when you're just starting out. I'm 5 years into my business, and I'm still developing. Each year it changes and grows and morphs into something else. And, you kind of get that laser focus where your first year you're kind of taking everything and doing everything. So my next question, because I have you, and I would be remiss in not asking you, you took your business from what was just one maybe networking group, and now you have, what did I say earlier, 8,000 chapters. How did you scale your business? If you could give us the secret sauce, what was it that you did that kind of went from where you were to where it is today?
So, I've done 1-hour presentations on this topic. So let me see if I can narrow it down.
Squeeze it in.
Beginning with, you say we started small, we're now global. So knowing your numbers is really, really important. Now, people hear that and they're like a bobblehead doll. They're like, yeah, know your numbers. No, I mean, really know your numbers. For example, at this moment, as of yesterday, I get a report for yesterday. BNI has 225,129 members.
Wow.
We have 8,189 chapters. chapters in over 70 countries. So when I say know your numbers, I mean really know your numbers. You've got to get granular. I get these numbers not quarterly, not monthly, not weekly. I get these numbers daily. Now, it's hard to do that when you're a solopreneur. I get it. But you got to look at your numbers at least weekly in order to start to get a handle on your business. Next is you got to have systems and processes. You got to put together systems and processes, and that means you need to write everything down. Probably one of the biggest mistakes that businesses make is they constantly chase bright, shiny objects. You want to be successful in business? Do 6 things 1,000 times, not 1,000 things 6 times. Do 6 things 1,000 times, not 1,000 things 6 times. Now, it doesn't have to be 6, it could be 5, it could be 7, but the idea is that you do a handful of things and you do them over and over and over and over again. What happens is in most businesses, they keep chasing those bright, shiny objects and they don't build up experience and they don't try and do something enough to achieve success at it. Now, what 6 things or what handful of things? You mentioned mentors. Those are so important. And by the way, sometimes it doesn't even have to be a person. It can be a book. Having someone to show you what worked for them helps you decide what 6 things. For me, a great example of that is The E-Myth by Michael Gerber.
I love that book.
Yeah, it's a fantastic book. Michael Gerber was a mentor of mine before I knew Michael Gerber.
Okay.
Well, what's really awesome is that, I applied all of his concepts and others and created and scaled my company. And guess what? I had a chance to meet Michael, and we've now become very, very close friends. And so he is a personal mentor now, but it doesn't have to be a face-to-face mentor. It can be, you can start with material and books. So you've got to be a lifelong learner and you need to read. But I'm singing to the choir here because you got people watching this that are probably lifelong learners.
They are. Well, hopefully so. And I 100% agree with you on the having a plan and watching the numbers. Even within the folks that are in BNI locally with me, I find that not everyone knows what contribution that's making to their business. And that's really important, right?
Really important. The metrics are critical. And a lot of times people they just don't understand how they're critical. And so in BNI, and I think in most businesses, people need to understand why before you can tell them how.
Exactly.
So if you're a small business, you have employees, it's very important to tell them why you're doing this so that they're then receptive or much more likely to be receptive to the how. If you just start telling them how to do it, people just going through the motions and like, I don't know why I'm doing this when I was told to do it. And so that's really important.
Okay, awesome. And so now you have all these years of experience and you have a global organization. If you could look back to those early days and remember when you were that small business owner, just kind of getting things off the ground first year or two, looking back, what would you tell yourself to do differently that if you could change things?
Yeah, well, if you ever watched the TV series, I don't think it's around anymore, Mythbusters?
I have seen that, yes.
Yeah, okay, so there's a great phrase on Mythbusters I really like. It's, I reject your reality and substitute my own. Okay. So, I reject that question as it is because we can't. Now, I understand what's going behind it is, what if in a perfect world, or if you were able to, what would it be? And I'm going to answer that sort of. But first, I want to talk about the fact that we can't. And what we tend to do is we beat ourselves up because we screwed up. Don't worry about screwing up. You will.
Right.
It happens.
It's how you learn.
And so, yeah, look, if people really knew how often I screwed up, they'd be like, how did this guy ever make a global company? I'll tell you how. Because I believe you define yourself by your successes, not by your failures. I have plenty of failures. I can point to a lot of them. I could give you a laundry list of the first year or two, the mistakes I made. But and I really believe this to my soul, ignorance on fire is better than knowledge on ice.
Interesting.
I did not know what I was doing when I mean, I know how to run a business, but I didn't know how to network.
Right.
And so, but I was on fire. I was excited. And that process is really, really important. So I made mistakes. You gotta plead guilty when you make a mistake, and then focus on solutions. And so if I had to pick, in the early years, it would be not getting, in the early year, the biggest mistake I had was not getting feedback from the members of BNI in the creation of the policies at BNI,
Okay.
which I rectified pretty darn quickly by forming what is now our International Board of Advisors. And they helped resolve all kinds of problems that I created myself. Today, I would say for me and for the small businesses that are listening, technology, you got to get technology under control as much as possible, because technology was a huge, massive problem. And I made every mistake imaginable in getting technology under control. And I mean, it's never fully under control, but it's in a much better place today than it was 5 years ago.
Sure. Well, and going back, I think all of us, I'm only 5 years in, and what I thought I was going to be doing 5 years ago and what I'm doing today are not the same thing. And those mistakes that we make tend to make us better business people, because if we learn from them, we change what those mistakes are and never let them happen again. Or it might even shift us to a different direction, which we were supposed to be going anyway. We just hadn't figured that out yet. So I love that. So you mentioned technology. My final question, or pretty close to the final question, is going to be about social media. You do social media very well. If I invite people to go to your website, and of course I don't have it, it's just IvanMisner.com, correct?
IvanMisner.com is my website. And of course, there's a link to my Facebook page as well, which is facebook.com/IvanMisner.BNIfounder. So come play with me on my blog. And
I'll post that link right on here so folks can find you. But talk to me about social media. So I didn't grow, I won't tell you how old I am because I'm getting older, but I didn't grow up with it. But what I do is work with my clients to help them understand why they need to be there and how to do that, have a brand online, because really in today's world, I don't know that you can sustain your business if you're not doing it online, meaning having a presence, either having a website, social media, what that looks like. Tell us what you're doing with your brand online that you think is being very successful for you.
So listen, I think people always kind of scratch their heads. Why is the founder of the largest face-to-face networking organization talking about online networking? And it's an easy answer. For me, it has been for many, many years, not an either or scenario. It's both and. You want to build a powerful personal network. I absolutely believe you need to spend time face-to-face networking with people. At the same time, I believe you need to have a good online presence. And so I have what I think is a good online presence. I think the mistake that a lot of people make, well, there's a lot of mistakes. One is that they spend too much time online. It's easy to get online to post something, and then you see some interesting link and you click on that and it takes you to some other link. And then like 2 hours later, something happens to the space-time continuum.
Trekkies.
and it goes by like that, and you're watching a cat video. So you got to have a plan, and you're going to stick to that plan, and don't spend a ton of time. When you get on to do something with business, set up, one time a day, one block of time a day, or every other day, or once a week, whatever you want to do. For me, I got a team that's helping me do it multiple times a day. But, when I was just doing it myself, it was usually just once or twice at the most a day where I would spend some time on social media. And don't sell to people. I believe social media is best utilized for brand building, for name recognition, provide content, have conversations, teach people things, share material that you have. Maybe 1 out of 10 posts should be you selling something. Hey, I got a special on something. Now you may sell other people's stuff. Hey, I just read this book by so-and-so. Here's a link. I recommend you go read it. That's okay. But selling yourself, people will stop watching. So if you go to my Facebook page, you'll see overwhelming majority of my posts are educational content.
I love that. And 100% agree again that you have to have a local presence where you're physically in talking to people. I think we've kind of some people have fallen into the trap of we have this great box where we can talk to people and we never have to leave. We don't have to leave our business, or we don't have to leave some people have a home business. Which I think is a big mistake. I have an online community that's all over the world as well. It's part of the photography group that I belong to. I'm a mentor in. So I know people worldwide through that network, but if I wasn't face to face with people here locally, my business would be suffering. So
I got to tell you something that I read not long ago. It was a study by the Independent Consultant Association, or words to that effect. It's people that are independent workers. So for, you own your own photography studio, whatever it is, you're independent. You don't work for a company. And they asked them, what are the ways that you presently get your business? And it was a crazy number. It was like 70% of their business came through various forms of networking, word of mouth, referrals, going to networking events. It was some variations of networking combined. It was like 70%. And it was somewhere in the neighborhood of 2% direct online sales through social media.
Okay.
Direct social media. Okay. 2%, 3%. So then they had one other question. What are you going to focus on next year? And it was like the overwhelming majority of people said, we're going to focus on social
media.
Social media. Okay. So I thought, all right, that's interesting. The next year, the results, 71% through networking, referral, marketing, whatnot, and like a 0.1% less in getting business through online networking.
Interesting.
So their face-to-face went up, their online went down, and here's the incredible thing. Next question. What are you going to do next year? They said, well, we're going to focus on our social networking. Media. Like, really? That's the definition of insanity.
Yeah. Well, I think it's become, for some people, it's both a shiny object that you can play with, and it is also an escape route, because if I'm not, but if I was the kind of person who doesn't like to talk to people,
right,
the computer allows me that barrier where I'm kind of talking to people, but I don't have to talk to people. So you
need both.
Exactly. I love that. I think the face-to-face is an imperative piece to your business. If you're not doing that you're not going to be winning. So, All right. So anything else that you think my audience would like to know? Small business owners building a brand, or have we covered it all?
No, I think we've covered most of that. Since I run a network, I think one of the most important lessons to learn in networking, and I think it is also relatable to brand building, and that is that the process is more about farming than it is about hunting. It's about cultivating relationships with people and connecting with people. And the better you can do that, the more you're going to be effective at your networking, and the more you're going to be effective at building your brand. I tell people I'm a 20-year overnight success. It took me 20 years to build, to really, truly build a brand. And I think all too often we do things for 3, 4, 5 years and we think, what's going on? How come this, I'll just, one other quick thing. At about 7 years into BNI, 7 years, I'm not making this up, and I don't think I've ever said this on a show before. At about 7 years into BNI, I thought, I'm a failure.
Uh-oh.
I did. Yeah. I thought, I'm a failure. This is not going nearly as well as I had hoped it would. I'm not very successful. I mean, I'm making a living, but just. And 3 years later, I had a best-selling book and we were off to the races. So don't give up, people. Don't do 6 things 1,000 times. If you're into it for 5 years, 7 years, 10 years, don't give up. If you've got a great idea and it's working, just keep plugging away and doing the things that you know will grow your business.
I love that too. I think that there's a lot to be said for passion and stick-to-itiveness, if you will, is, you have to have the passion to do it, and you have to want it. If you don't want it, you won't make it happen. But if you do, you'll find a way. So, I think that there's great power in not giving up too soon, because if you may have just missed that best thing that you were going to do. It just hadn't happened to you yet. That door just you hadn't found the path to the door that was going to open just yet. So I love that.
And sometimes there's just a lot of other doors that you got to keep going through to get there.
That too. Well, thank you.
The secret, let me give you one last thing.
Yeah.
The secret to success without hard work is still a secret.
This is true.
It takes hard work.
Yes, I love it. Well, I thank you so much for being with me here today. It was so great to talk to you, and I appreciate you giving us your time. And I'll link everybody for your information, so we'll send them your direction. You've got some fabulous books that folks should be reading, especially for small business owners. So we'll put all those in the links. And thank you again.
Thanks, Tammy.
All right, take care.